Rain drizzled over the quiet city streets that morning, the kind that made everything seem slower, colder. Inside a small corner cafe, the scent of coffee and baked bread offered a little warmth against the gray skies outside. Behind the counter, Ethan Cole wiped the same mug for the 5th time, his tired eyes drifting toward the window where people hurried by in their fine coats and clean shoes. He used to belong to that world, the world of dreams and potential. Once upon a time, Ethan was top of his class, engaged to the love of his life, and ready to take over his father's small construction business. But life has a way of changing direction when you least expect it. 8 years ago, his fiancée, Lena Hart, had left for New York with big dreams. She promised to come back. He believed her, until she didn't. And then, life fell apart. His father died suddenly, the business collapsed, and his newborn son, Oliver, was born premature. Ethan worked any job he could find, cleaning floors, unloading trucks, fixing machines, anything to keep his baby fed. Now, at 33, he was a single dad, barely keeping the lights on. That morning, Oliver had begged him not to leave. "Daddy, can you stay home today?" He'd asked softly, his tiny hand clutching Ethan's shirt. But Ethan couldn't. He couldn't risk losing this cafe job too. He sighed, glancing at the clock. 1 more hour, he whispered to himself. The cafe door chimed. A woman walked in, elegant, confident, wearing a dark green trench coat that looked more expensive than the cafe itself. Her heels clicked softly against the tiles as she scanned the room. Ethan froze mid-step, the mug slipping slightly in his hand. It couldn't be, but when she looked up and smiled, time seemed to collapse in on itself. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. It was her, Lena. For a moment, neither moved. She looked flawless, polished, radiant, the kind of woman who had conquered her dreams. And he looked like a man worn by time. "Lena," he managed, forcing a small, awkward smile. "Wow, it's been a long time." She smiled faintly, but her eyes scanned the cafe, almost as if trying to make sense of why he was here. "You work here?" Ethan nodded, pretending it didn't sting. "Yeah, just helping out. Pays the bills." Her face softened, but before she could respond, a small voice echoed from the back kitchen. "Daddy, look, I drew you something." Oliver ran out, his little hands clutching a crayon-stained paper. He stopped in his tracks when he saw Lena, blinking curiously. "This is your son?" Lena asked softly. Ethan smiled proudly. "Yeah, this is Oliver." Lena knelt, her eyes gentle as she met the boy's gaze. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm. "That's a beautiful drawing." Oliver grinned shyly. "Thanks. Daddy says it's our new house when we get rich." Ethan's cheeks flushed. "Hey, buddy." But Lena's expression changed, not with pity, but with something deeper. Guilt. Over the next few minutes, they spoke like old friends trying to bridge a lifetime of silence. Lena told him she'd started a small design firm years ago that had grown into a global brand. She'd come back to this city for a short break, to reconnect with old memories. She didn't say it out loud, but Ethan could see it in her eyes. She still cared. When her driver arrived to take her to a meeting, she hesitated before leaving. "Ethan," she said, "I'd love to see you and Oliver again. Dinner, maybe." He wanted to say yes, but years of disappointment had taught him not to hope. "We'll see," he replied, forcing a smile. That night, Ethan walked home with Oliver asleep on his shoulder. Their small apartment was cold, the heater barely working. He tucked his son into bed and sat by the window, staring at the skyline. Somewhere out there, Lena was probably dining under crystal chandeliers, surrounded by success, the kind he used to chase. He didn't know that Lena sat in her car that same night, looking out the window of her luxury suite, haunted by what she'd seen. She remembered the man who once stayed up all night helping her build her dreams. She remembered the way he held her when life felt impossible. And now, he was struggling to survive. Tears blurred her vision. She reached for her phone and made a call. "Mr. Daniels," she said firmly, "I want you to find Ethan Cole. I have a job proposal for him." Days later, Ethan got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Cole, this is Hart Industries. We're looking for a project manager for a major housing development. Ms. Hart personally recommended you." Ethan blinked in disbelief. "Lena Hart?" "Yes, sir. She said you're the only man she trusts for the job." Ethan's heart pounded. He hesitated, thinking it had to be a mistake. But when he arrived for the interview, Lena was waiting in the conference room, smiling softly. "I told you we'd see each other again," she said. He looked around. The room was sleek, modern, intimidating. "Lena, I haven't managed anything in years. You've managed life, Ethan," she said, stepping closer. "You've done more than any man I know, raising your son alone, working endlessly, never giving up. That's the kind of strength money can't buy." He stared at her, his eyes glistening. "Why are you doing this?" Lena took a breath. "Because once upon a time, you believed in me when no one else did. Let me believe in you now." The next few months changed everything. Ethan took the job, nervous at first, but soon his leadership shone. His ideas transformed the housing project, affordable homes for struggling families. Lena often stopped by the site, watching him work with a pride she couldn't hide. One evening, as the sun set over the newly built houses, Oliver ran up holding a small flower. "Miss Lena, Daddy said you're our lucky star." Lena laughed softly. "Oh really?" Ethan walked over, his hands dusty from work. "He's not wrong," he said, smiling. They stood there for a moment, silent, surrounded by everything they had rebuilt, not just homes, but hope. Lena reached for his hand, hesitant but certain. "Maybe it's time we start again," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, his voice barely audible. "I'd like that." Months later, Oliver sat on Lena's lap during the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the housing project. Reporters took photos, calling it a CEO's gift to her hometown. But those who looked closely saw something more, a small family that had been broken by life, now whole again through kindness, forgiveness, and love. As the crowd applauded, Lena looked at Ethan and smiled. "You once said we'd build something beautiful together," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "We finally did." Speech balloon closing narration. Sometimes, the people who walk out of your life return not to remind you of what you lost, but to help you find what you deserve. Never underestimate how far an act of faith, or kindness, can reach.